Can you be my mom? The question landed softer than rain and heavier than a verdict. Noah Bennett froze halfway between the curb and the hotel steps, one hand still on his son's backpack strap, as 9-year-old Eli held out a wilted paper flower to the bride sitting alone in the storm. Claire Morgan's white dress was soaked at the hem, her makeup washed clean down one cheek, and behind the glass doors, the hotel manager quietly told a staff member, "Keep her moving." The family requested no scene. Noah did not raise his voice. He only stepped forward, slipped his old work jacket around Claire's trembling shoulders, and told Eli, "Son, you asked with your heart. Now we let her answer with hers." 3 hours earlier, Harper Mill Hotel had smelled like roses, floor wax, and expensive perfume, the kind of sweetness that tried too hard to cover nerves. White chairs lined the ballroom in perfect rows. Gold ribbons hung from the aisle seats. A tiered cake waited under a soft spotlight, untouched and proud, like it still believed in the day it had been ordered for. Outside, the small town was gray with spring rain, but inside the wedding hall, everything had been arranged to look flawless. That was the first thing Noah noticed later when he walked past the open service door with Eli beside him. How quickly flawless things could be taken apart. A florist was pulling white lilies from tall glass vases and dropping them into a plastic bin. A young server folded napkins with the stiff speed of someone told not to ask questions. The sound of metal chair legs scraping against polished floor cut through the hallway one drag at a time. Noah had only stopped at the hotel because Eli's school sat 2 blocks away, and the rain had started hard, the kind that soaked through denim before a man could cross a parking lot. His garage was still open. His hands smelled faintly of motor oil and brake dust, and the old pickup idled near the curb with a stubborn belt chirping under the hood. Eli had been talking about Mother's Day practice, about how Mrs. Parker said every student could bring something handmade. He had spent 2 nights cutting red construction paper into uneven petals. Noah had watched him glue them around a yellow button from one of his late mother's sewing tins. Eli called it a flower. Noah called it careful love. Then they saw the bride. Claire sat on the hotel's side steps as if someone had set her there and forgotten she was human. Her veil had slipped loose, clinging to her shoulder like torn fog. One hand held a bouquet with crushed stems. The other rested palm up in her lap, empty except for rainwater. Near the door, a clear plastic hotel bag sat against the wall with a paper tag looped around it. Lost property. Inside, Noah could see a phone, a small wallet, and folded papers pressed flat beneath the plastic. The phone lit up once, cold blue against the gray afternoon, then went dark before Claire could even look toward it. The manager saw Noah noticing and moved half a step in front of the bag. His suit was dry. His smile was trained. "Sir, this is a private matter," he said. "We're handling it." Noah looked from the bag to Claire, then to the staff carrying pieces of someone else's wedding past her like cleanup after a storm. "Does handling it mean leaving her in the rain?" he asked. The manager's smile tightened. "The groom's family canceled the room block. We can't have confusion at the entrance." Claire flinched at the word family. It was small, almost invisible, but Noah caught it because grief had taught him the language of tiny movements. Eli caught something too, though not the same thing. Children often notice what adults step around. He slipped his backpack off one shoulder, pulled out the paper flower now softened at the edges from the damp air, and walked toward Claire before Noah could stop him. He did not touch her dress. He did not crowd her. He simply stood one step below, lifted the flower with both hands, and whispered the question that made the manager stop breathing through his polished smile. Claire stared at the flower. Her lips parted, but no answer came. Noah stepped behind Eli, close enough to protect him, far enough not to pressure her. He removed his flannel-lined work jacket and laid it gently across Claire's shoulders. The jacket was old, brown at the cuffs, carrying the smell of rain, gasoline, and a day's honest labor. Claire's fingers closed around the collar as if warmth itself were something she did not trust yet. "I'm sorry," she said, barely audible. "I'm not anyone's mother." Eli lowered the flower but did not take it back. Noah placed one steady hand on his son's shoulder. "That's all right," he said to Claire. You don't have to be anyone right now. The manager cleared his throat. Sir, again, the family asked that she not remain here. Noah turned slowly, not angry, not loud, just still in a way that made the young server stop folding napkins behind the glass. Then we'll move her somewhere with witnesses, food, and a roof, he said. Not because a family requested it. Because she's cold. Claire looked up then, really looked at him for the first time. There was no romance in the look. No trust yet. Only exhaustion, shame, and the faint confusion of someone who had been treated like a problem and suddenly addressed like a person. Noah nodded toward the diner across the street, its red sign blinking through the rain. Can you stand? Claire tried. Her knees failed once. Noah did not grab her arm. He offered his hand palm up and waited until she chose to take it. Eli walked beside them, guarding the paper flower under his jacket like it was made of glass. Behind them, the manager bent quickly, picked up the clear plastic property bag, and tucked it behind the reception desk instead of handing it to Claire. The phone inside lit up again, just long enough for Noah to see Daniel's name and a message on the locked screen. Don't answer anyone. Daniel's name glowed on the locked phone for half a second before the hotel manager slid the clear plastic property bag behind the reception desk, as if a woman's wallet, papers, and voice could all be filed away under lost property. Noah saw it, but he did not reach across the counter. He guided Claire through the rain toward the diner instead, one hand resting lightly between Eli's shoulders, the other carrying nothing but restraint. The bell above Marlene's diner gave a tired silver jingle when they stepped inside. Warm air rolled over them, smelling of coffee, bacon grease, and wet wool. A few heads turned. Then a few eyes dropped to Claire's soaked wedding dress, to Noah's oil-stained work shirt, to Eli holding a paper flower under his jacket like a secret he was afraid the world might crush. Booth in the back? Marlene asked from behind the counter. Her gray hair was pinned up with a pencil, her widow's ring still on a chain around her neck. Noah nodded once. Somewhere quiet. Coffee? Soup first, Noah said. For her. Claire lowered herself into the vinyl booth like her bones had become heavier than the dress. The white satin spread awkwardly beneath the table, streaked with rainwater and a faint gray line where the hotel steps had stained the hem. Eli slid into the opposite side, careful not to bump her knees. He placed the paper flower on the table between them. Its red petals had begun to curl. Noah stayed standing until Marlene set down a towel and a steaming bowl of chicken noodle soup. He pushed the bowl gently toward Claire, not like charity, but like a simple fact. A man in a seed company cap at the counter leaned toward another customer and whispered, too loudly, that the bride from the Morgan wedding? The other man glanced at Noah's boots. Looks like she found help fast. Noah heard it. Claire heard it. Even Eli heard enough to look down at his hands. Noah pulled out a chair and sat with his back to the room, giving Claire the wall, the exit, and as much privacy as a public place could offer. Eat, he said softly. You don't have to explain anything on an empty stomach. Claire's fingers trembled around the spoon. Before she could lift it, the diner door opened again and a young woman rushed in, breathless, one heel in her hand, the other still on her foot. Her pale green bridesmaid dress was damp at the shoulders, and mascara had gathered under her eyes in tired half-moons. Claire. Claire went still. Jenna? Jenna crossed the room, then stopped short when she saw Noah and Eli. For a second she looked ready to apologize to everyone for everything. I didn't know where they took you, she said. They told us you left. Claire let out a small sound that was almost a laugh but had no life in it. I didn't have my phone. Noah's eyes moved to the rain-streaked window, beyond it to the hotel sign flickering across the street. He said nothing. Jenna slid into the booth beside Claire, her hands gripping a small clutch so tightly the clasp clicked twice. Daniel didn't even come out, she said. He texted you from the groom's suite. Then his mother walked up to the microphone. Claire closed her eyes. Please don't. She has to know what they did, Noah said, quiet enough that it did not feel like command. Jenna looked at him, really looked, seeing the grease at his cuffs, the tiredness around his eyes, the way his hand stayed open on the table instead of reaching for Claire's pain. She still did not know whether to trust him. But something about his calm made her lower her voice instead of perform her outrage. Mrs. Whitmore said everyone deserved honesty before vows, Jenna whispered. Then she put a medical paper on the screen. A diagnosis. Your name. The clinic logo. The spoon slipped from Claire's hand and struck the bowl with a small ceramic clink. Marlene froze behind the counter. The men stopped whispering, not out of compassion yet, but because scandal had just become specific. Jenna opened her clutch and pulled out her phone. I took a picture because I knew something was wrong. She turned the screen toward Claire. The image was blurry, taken from the side of the ballroom, but it showed the wedding arch, the projection screen, and a cropped medical document magnified under white light. Claire's name sat near the top. Below it, lines of clinical language had been cut off by the edge of the slide. Noah leaned only far enough to see, not far enough to invade. The last portion of the page was missing. Not blurred. Not folded. Missing. That's not the whole document, Claire said, barely breathing. Jenna nodded. I know. At the counter, the man in the seed cap muttered, well, families have a right to know what they're marrying into. Noah turned his head just enough for the room to feel the movement. He did not glare. He did not stand. No, he said. People have a right to their own medical records. The diner went quiet in that uncomfortable way small towns get quiet when decency interrupts entertainment. The bell over the door jingled again. The hotel manager stepped in, holding a polite smile and an envelope with Claire's name written across it. Miss Morgan, he said, as if the room were a lobby and he still controlled the lighting. We located some of your belongings. For liability reasons, we'll need you to sign a release before anything is returned. Noah looked at the envelope, then at the manager's dry sleeves, then at Claire's phone-shaped outline still visible through the plastic bag tucked under his arm. Her phone was in your lost property bag 10 minutes ago, Noah said. The manager's smile paused for one beat too long. Jenna looked down at her photo again, zoomed in with 2 fingers, and her face changed. In the bottom corner of the projected medical page was a print timestamp from that morning, hours before Daniel sent the text canceling the wedding. The timestamp on Jenna's photo changed the air inside Marlene's diner. It was not loud. It was worse than loud. It made every spoon, every coffee cup, every breath feel suddenly out of place. Noah looked at the tiny print mark in the corner of the projected medical page, then at the hotel manager holding Claire's belongings like they were evidence in his possession instead of property that belonged to a woman shivering in a borrowed jacket. The manager recovered first. Polished men often did. That's an internal matter for the wedding party, he said, placing the envelope on the edge of the table, but keeping the clear plastic bag tucked beneath his arm. Miss Morgan can sign, collect her items, and avoid making this more difficult. Claire stared at the bag. Her phone was inside. Her wallet, folded papers, a lipstick she had probably chosen that morning believing someone would kiss her at the altar. Noah did not reach for it. He only pulled a napkin from the dispenser, took the diner pen chained to the receipt tray, and wrote down the time. 4:17 p.m. Then he wrote, property bag visible, phone inside, release requested before return. Jenna watched his hand move. What are you doing? She whispered. Noah capped the pen. Remembering what people forget when they're scared. The manager gave a small laugh through his nose. Sir, with respect, this does not concern you. Noah slid the napkin toward Claire, not toward himself. It concerns her. That's enough. The man in the seed cap shifted on his stool as if dignity made him uncomfortable. Marlene came from behind the counter carrying a takeout sack, her mouth pressed thin. Soup, coffee, and pie, she said, setting it near Claire. On the house. Claire tried to object, but Noah quietly placed cash under the sugar jar before Marlene could see. It was not much cash. A 10, 3 ones, and quarters he had pulled from the ashtray of his truck that morning because the electric bill sat unpaid on his garage desk. Eli saw the quarters. He knew what they meant. Children of working fathers learn the weight of small money early. Daddy, he said softly, That was for the washer. Noah touched the back of his son's head. We've got clean enough shirts for tomorrow. No one praised him. No music rose. The manager simply looked at Noah's grease-stained cuffs and decided he had found the weak point. Mr. Bennett, is it? He said, reading the embroidered patch on Noah's work shirt. You seem like a decent man, but taking responsibility for a stranger in distress can become complicated. People may misunderstand. Noah stood then, slow enough not to threaten anyone. They already have. He turned to Claire. You don't need to sign anything here. Not hungry, not cold, not with half the town watching. Claire's fingers tightened around the spoon. For the first time since the hotel steps, she nodded because she wanted to, not because someone had moved her. The manager's smile thinned. Then I'll hold the items until proper authorization. Jenna's eyes flashed. She is Claire Morgan. What authorization does she need to receive Claire Morgan's phone? The manager looked at Jenna, then at the booths, then at the window where rain blurred the hotel sign into a smear of gold. As I said, liability. Noah picked up the paper flower from the table. Its petals were soft now, red dye bleeding faintly onto his thumb. He did not fix it in front of Claire like some symbol he understood better than she did. He simply asked Eli for the little school glue stick in his backpack, smoothed one torn edge, and pressed it gently back into place. Things don't stop matching because they got wet, he said. Eli watched him repair the flower with the seriousness of a boy watching his father fix a brake line. A leaking sink, a life. Claire looked away, but not before Noah saw her eyes fill again. Not from shame this time, from the shock of being handled with care. Outside, thunder rolled low over the street. Noah gathered the takeout sack, Jenna's photo, the napkin with the time, and Claire's unsigned envelope. He left the release form untouched. At the door, Marlene stopped him with a look only widows and single parents seem to know how to give. Garage got that room upstairs still empty? She asked. Noah hesitated. The room above Bennett Auto Repair was small, drafty, and smelled faintly of cardboard boxes and old motor oil. The roof clicked in the rain. The radiator clanked at night. It was not charity. It was barely shelter. But it had a lock on the inside. It's empty, he said. Claire looked up fast. I can't. You can work, Noah said. My books are a mess. Receipts, invoices, parts orders. You fix those, the room is yours until you choose different. The manager gave a soft, patronizing breath. A business arrangement made in a diner after a scandal. That should hold up well. Noah did not answer him. He opened the door and let Claire decide whether to walk through it. Rain struck the sidewalk in silver needles. Across the street, the hotel's security camera above the side entrance blinked red, pointed exactly at the steps where Claire had been left. The property bag had been moved, and a manager had claimed everything was being handled. Noah noticed the camera only because years of fixing cars had trained him to trust what machines saw when people lied. And as he helped Eli shield the paper flower from the rain, he realized the first quiet act of kindness had just placed them all beneath the one witness no one had thought to silence. By Monday morning, the room above Bennett Auto Repair had become the most talked about address in town. Not because anyone had seen anything wrong, but because people rarely needed proof when a rumor already felt useful. A photo of Claire walking up the garage stairs in Noah's old jacket had spread through the community page before breakfast, cropped just enough to remove Marlene holding the takeout bag behind them and Eli carrying the paper flower in both hands. At 8:12 a.m., while Noah was tightening a loose alternator belt under the fluorescent lights of the garage, his phone buzzed with a call from Willow Creek Elementary. The belt squealed once, sharp and uneven. Noah wiped his hands on a rag and answered. Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Parker said, careful and professional. We need to discuss Eli's home environment. Noah looked through the glass office window. Eli sat at the small desk inside, finishing a spelling worksheet before school, his sneakers swinging above the floor. Upstairs, Claire was sorting invoices at the little folding table Noah had carried up for her, still wearing borrowed sweatpants from Marlene and a sweater too large in the shoulders. Is Eli in trouble? Noah asked. Not exactly. Did he hurt someone? No. Then say what you mean, ma'am. There was a pause on the line, not offended, only caught. Rain tapped softly against the garage doors. The whole place smelled of oil, cardboard, and coffee that had burned too long on the hot plate. Mrs. Parker lowered her voice. There are concerns that he may be exposed to adult conflict. The wedding situation, the online discussion, a woman staying above your business. Noah closed his eyes for 1 second. Not from guilt, from tiredness. She has a locked room, paid work, and witnesses who saw why she needed shelter. I'm not accusing you, Mrs. Parker said. I'm asking because other people are. That was fair enough to hurt. Noah drove Eli to school himself. He did not send Claire. He did not ask her to hide either. He walked into the front office in his work boots and cleanest flannel, still smelling faintly of brake cleaner no soap could fully erase. The secretary looked at his hands first, then his face. Mrs. Parker met him near the attendance counter with a folder held against her chest like a shield she was. Embarrassed to need. Mr. Bennett, I respect you, she said. But I have to protect my students. So do I. Then help me understand. Noah nodded toward the folder. What are you using to judge her? Mrs. Parker hesitated. She opened it and showed him a printed screenshot from the town page. Then an email complaint from an anonymous parent claiming Eli was being emotionally confused by a disgraced woman pretending to be a mother figure. Noah read the line twice. The phrase mother figure sat there cold and polished. Too adult for gossip, too clean for concern. Who sent that? He asked. It came through the parent portal. For now. Noah did not push. He had learned fixing engines that forcing a stuck bolt too early only stripped it. Back at the garage, Claire had found the first thing that did not fit. Jenna's photo from the ballroom was open on Noah's old desktop monitor, enlarged until the pixels broke into blocks of white and gray. Beside it lay the unsigned hotel release form, the diner napkin with Noah's 417 note, and a stack of garage invoices Claire had sorted by month because numbers were easier than feelings. Her finger hovered over the lower edge of the projected medical document. The last page is gone, she said. Noah stood behind the chair, far enough not to crowd her. Maybe the picture cut it off. No, Claire zoomed in. Her voice was steady in the way glass is steady right before it cracks. Look at the page number. 2 of 3. Noah leaned closer. The fluorescent light hummed above them. Eli, sitting on the floor with his backpack beside him, looked up from repairing one bent petal of the paper flower with clear tape. That was already torn, he said. Noah turned. What was, buddy? Eli pointed at the screen, not understanding the weight of what he had noticed. The paper on the wall. At the hotel. It looked like my flower when the rain got it. The bottom wasn't there. Claire's hand dropped from the mouse. A child had not solved anything. He had only remembered shape the way children do. Torn paper. Missing edge. Wrong feeling. Then Claire's phone. Finally returned after Marlene threatened to call the local sheriff about. Withheld belongings. Buzzed on the desk. Everyone looked at it. Daniel's name appeared again. This time the screen showed the full message. Don't make this legal. You know what people will think. Noah did not touch the phone. He took a clean sheet from the printer, laid it beside the screen, and wrote the words down exactly, along with the time. Claire stared at the message as if Daniel had reached into the room without opening the door. He doesn't say I'm infertile, Noah said quietly. Jenna, who had just stepped in through the side door with wet hair and a grocery bag of clothes for Claire, stopped mid-step. What? Noah pointed to the message, then to the projected document. At the diner, people said it. Online, people said it. His mother implied it. But Daniel keeps saying legal, people, future. Not the word everyone else is using. Claire swallowed. Why would that matter? Noah looked at the missing page number again. Because men who know the whole truth usually don't repeat the part that can be proven false. Outside, a pickup slowed in front of the garage, then rolled on. Inside, the paper flower lay on Eli's knee with one petal taped back in place, and on the monitor behind it, page 2 of 3 glowed like a door someone had tried very carefully to keep closed. Page 2 of 3 stayed on Noah's monitor long after everyone stopped pretending it was just a cropped photograph. The missing page had turned the garage quiet in a different way, the kind of quiet that made the hum of the fluorescent tubes sound like a warning. Claire sat with her hands folded so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Jenna stood near the doorway, damp hair clinging to her cheeks, staring at Daniel's message on the returned phone as if the words could change if she looked long enough. Eli, sensing the grown-up weight in the room without understanding it, tucked the taped paper flower carefully into his backpack. "Daddy," he asked, "can I still bring it to school?" Noah looked down at him. "Only if you still want to." Eli nodded, but not with the excitement he had carried 2 days earlier. By afternoon, Willow Creek Elementary smelled of crayons, floor cleaner, and cafeteria. Rolls cooling on metal racks. The Mother's Day practice was being held in the multipurpose room, where folding chairs scraped across the linoleum and children in bright shirts carried handmade cards shaped like hearts, mugs, and bouquets. Noah stood at the back wall with Claire beside him, not hidden, not displayed. Mrs. Parker had allowed Claire to observe only because Noah had signed in as Eli's parent and written guest beside Claire's name in firm block letters. She had not approved it. She had not condemned it either. She watched with the careful face of a teacher trying to protect a child while standing inside a town that loved to talk. Eli stepped onto the low stage holding his paper flower. A boy near the front whispered, "You don't have a mom, right?" Another child shushed him too late. Eli's shoulders rose toward his ears. Claire took one step back as if the sentence had struck her instead. Noah did not rush the stage. He did not shame the child. He only walked to the aisle and knelt where Eli could see him. "You want to come down?" Noah asked. Eli shook his head once, small and stubborn. "You want to change your words?" Another shake. Mrs. Parker's hand hovered over her clipboard. The room had not gone silent, not fully, but the whispering had thinned. Noah kept his voice low. "Then breathe first." Eli breathed. The paper flower trembled in his hand. "My dad says a family is who stays." Eli read from his practice sheet. His voice cracked on the word stays. Claire turned toward the hallway, blinking fast. She made it 3 steps before Noah followed, not to stop her, only to make sure she did not leave alone. In the corridor, under a bulletin board covered with construction paper suns, Claire pressed one hand to her mouth. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "He'll get hurt because of me." "He got hurt because adults taught a child what to repeat," Noah said. "That's not on you. You don't know that." "No," he said. "I don't. That's why we don't pretend feelings are facts." She looked at him then, anger and gratitude mixing until neither had a clean place to land. Behind them, Mrs. Parker stepped into the hall with a form clipped to the top of her folder. "Mr. Bennett," she said gently. "For the actual program, guests are limited to mother or legal guardian. That's the policy." Noah took the paper. The line was printed clearly beneath the school logo. "Mother or legal guardian only." He read it once, then handed it back without argument. "A rule can protect a child," he said, "or it can teach him who doesn't belong." Mrs. Parker did not answer, but her fingers tightened around the clipboard. That was the first time she looked less certain. Noah did not ask her to break the rule. That would have been easy to dismiss. Instead, that evening, he sat at the small kitchen table beneath the yellow light, the chair beside him still empty, and wrote a letter. He wrote that Eli Bennett was not asking the school to replace his mother. He was asking to honor a trusted adult who had treated him with patience during a difficult week. He wrote that he, Noah, remained fully responsible as Eli's parent. He attached Jenna's photograph of the medical slide, Daniel's message, and a printed copy of the town page rumor with the original image cropped beside Marlene's uncropped version showing the takeout bag and witnesses. Claire watched from the doorway to the kitchen, arms wrapped around herself. "You're making it worse for yourself," she said. Noah folded the letter into an envelope. "Maybe, but not telling the truth doesn't make a lie kinder." Before he could seal it, the garage bell rang downstairs. It was not a customer's ring. It was hurried, uneven, followed by Jenna's voice calling his name. Noah opened the side door to find her on the steps holding a small black USB drive between two fingers like it might burn her. "My cousin works reception at the clinic," she said, breathless. "She shouldn't have sent this to me, but she said the access log gets wiped at the end of the week." Claire came down behind Noah, one hand on the railing. Her face had gone still. "What access log?" Jenna swallowed. "The one that shows your file was downloaded 2 days before the wedding." Noah did not take the drive right away. He looked at Claire first, waiting for permission, because even truth could become another violation if handled by the wrong hands. Claire stared at the USB, then at the letter on the kitchen table behind him, then at Eli's paper flower peeking from the open backpack near the stairs. "Look," she said. Only then did Noah reach for it, and as the tiny drive touched his palm, the first proof of a larger hand behind Claire's humiliation stopped being a feeling and became something with a timestamp. The USB drive was smaller than Noah's thumb, but when Jenna placed it on the kitchen table, everyone looked at it like it had weight. Rain tapped against the garage windows. The old refrigerator clicked on, hummed, then settled into the same tired vibration as the fluorescent light above the desk. Claire stood behind Noah's chair with her arms folded tight, not because she did not want to see, but because part of her was afraid the truth might hurt worse than the lie. Noah plugged the drive into the old desktop and waited. The machine groaned, the fan rattling as if it had been asked to carry more than invoices and parts orders. A folder opened. Inside was a clinic access log, plain rows of dates, times, user IDs, file names. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just a cold little record of who had touched a private life. Noah did not speak first. He wrote the file name on a legal pad, then the time Jenna said the log would be erased. Jenna pointed to one row. "There," she whispered. 2 days before the wedding. Claire Morgan. Full reproductive panel. Downloaded at 9:43 a.m. Claire leaned closer. Her breath caught. "I never requested that." Noah's eyes moved to the user ID. "Who is R. Hensley?" Jenna swallowed. "Rebecca Hensley. Front desk. She's related to Mrs. Whitmore. Cousin by marriage, I think." The room did not explode. Tightened. That was all. Eli sat on the bottom stair in his pajamas, allowed to stay only because he had woken for water and because Noah did not believe children needed lies when silence would do. He was folding the taped paper flower carefully in his lap, not listening to the words as much as the grown-up quiet around them. Claire looked at the screen until the rows blurred. "So Daniel's mother asked someone to steal it?" "We don't know that yet," Noah said. It would have been easy to say yes. It would have felt good. But truth handled too quickly could become another weapon. He clicked print. The printer coughed, pulled one sheet crooked, and began slowly feeding out the access log line by line. When the paper slid free, Noah placed it beside Jenna's photo of the wedding screen and Daniel's message. "Don't make this legal." 3 things now lay under the kitchen light, each one incomplete alone, but together they had started speaking in the same direction. Jenna opened another file from the USB, a scan from the clinic's message system. It showed a confirmation that the full report contained 3 pages. Claire's fingers went to her throat. 3, she said. Noah nodded once. The slide only showed 2. "No," Jenna said softly. The slide showed page 2, cropped, like somebody didn't want the end scene. The garage phone rang before anyone could answer. Noah let it ring twice, then picked up. "Bennett Auto." A man's voice, smooth and tired, came through the line. "Daniel." "Noah Bennett?" Noah looked at Claire. She went pale but did not step back. "Speaking." "I'd like to keep this civil," Daniel said. "Claire is emotional. My mother is emotional. Everyone made mistakes." Noah set the receiver down on the desk and pressed the speaker button so Claire could hear without being forced to hold the phone. "What mistakes?" There was a pause. Paper shifted on Daniel's end, or maybe a hand over a mouthpiece. Public embarrassment. Poor timing. But dragging clinic employees into this, digging through logs, sending letters to the school, that's not going to help her. Jenna's eyes widened. Noah's pen stopped over the legal pad. He had not mentioned the school letter outside that house and Mrs. Parker's office. "Who told you about the school letter?" Noah asked. The line went quiet. Not long, just long enough. "Small town," Daniel said lightly. "People talk. People talk," Noah repeated. "But you knew about clinic logs before we called the clinic." Another pause, shorter this time and sharper around the edges. "Listen, Noah. You fix engines. I respect that. But medical privacy, family law, reputations, these are not things you want to step into without understanding the consequences." Claire flinched, not at the insult, but at the old shape of it. Men deciding which rooms she was too fragile to enter. Noah's voice stayed level. "Then explain the consequence of page 3. Daniel inhaled. The speaker crackled faintly. "What?" "The report had 3 pages. Your mother showed 1 cropped page. Where is the last page?" This time Daniel did not answer with words. The call ended. The dial tone filled the office like a flatline. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then the printer beeped again from a delayed job, and a final scan appeared in the output tray. Jenna picked it up first. Her hand shook. "My cousin sent the original cover sheet," she said. "It lists the doctor." Claire reached for it slowly. At the bottom was a physician's note, not the full 3rd page, but enough to show the line everyone had been denied. "Reduced fertility does not equal sterility. Further evaluation recommended." Claire read it once, then once more. Her face changed in a way Noah had not seen before. Not relief. Not yet. Anger had arrived first, clean and quiet. "They told a room full of people I could never be a mother," she whispered. Noah looked at the access log, the cropped slide, Daniel's message, the school complaint printed in Mrs. Parker's folder, and the note from the doctor. He could have driven to Daniel's house. He could have shouted on the town page. He could have handed rage to a crowd already hungry for it. Instead, he gathered every page into one folder, wrote dates on sticky notes, and placed Claire's name on the front in careful block letters. "This goes to someone who can protect you," he said. "Not punish them for sport. Protect you." At that moment, headlights swept across the garage windows. A black sedan slowed outside, then stopped beneath the sign for Bennett Auto Repair. Through the rain-streaked glass, Noah saw Daniel step out in a dark coat, phone in hand, his face composed for anyone watching. But before he reached the door, he looked up at the hotel security camera across the street, as if realizing too late that closed doors were no longer enough. The Willow Creek Elementary Auditorium smelled of floor polish, tempera paint, and rain-soaked jackets. Paper daisies lined the stage. Folding chairs filled the room in crooked rows, each one holding a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, or someone pretending not to watch the woman in the ivory dress coat standing near the back doors. Claire had not worn white. She had chosen gray, plain and quiet, but people still saw the bride first. Noah walked beside her with Eli's backpack over one shoulder and the evidence folder tucked under his arm. He did not look like a man coming to win. He looked like a father who had worked all day, changed his shirt in a garage bathroom, and still showed up because his son needed him there. At the entrance table, Mrs. Parker held a clipboard and the printed guest policy. Her eyes moved from Noah to Claire, then to the paper flower in Eli's hand. "Mr. Bennett," she said gently, "I need to be careful." "So do I," Noah said. Claire stayed one step behind him until Eli reached back and took 2 of her fingers. Not her whole hand, just enough for a child to say, "Don't leave yet." Across the room, Daniel stood beside his mother beneath a banner that read "Celebrating Mothers and Those Who Love Us." Mrs. Whitmore wore pearls, a navy dress, and the soft public smile of a woman who had never raised her voice because she had never needed to. "We're all here for the children," she told a cluster of parents, loud enough to carry. "I only hope certain adults can put bitterness aside." A few heads turned toward Noah's work boots, a few toward Claire's lowered eyes. Daniel stepped forward then, smooth, wounded, almost believable. "Claire," he said, "this doesn't have to happen here. We can talk privately." "Noah, I know you mean well, but you're being pulled into something you don't understand." Noah did not open the folder. Not yet. I understand a child invited someone to hear him read, he said. That's why we're here. Mrs. Parker's fingers tightened around the clipboard. The policy says mother or legal guardian. Then read the next page, Noah said. He handed her a copy of the request letter he had written, the one naming Claire not as mother, not as guardian, but as Eli's honored guest under his permission as parent. Mrs. Parker read silently. Behind her, the gym microphone gave a low feedback whine, then settled. Mrs. Whitmore sighed with practiced sadness. This is exactly what worries people. Confusing a little boy during a painful adult dispute. Eli pressed the paper flower to his chest. I'm not confused, he said, small but clear. The room did not go silent, but it bent toward him. Noah touched Eli's shoulder, reminding him that one sentence was enough. Daniel used the pause. My mother made a mistake in judgment, he said, turning to the parents. A private medical issue became public in an emotional moment. We regret that, but no one stole anything. No one meant harm. It was the best lie because part of it sounded like an apology. Several faces softened. Claire's breath shortened beside Noah. For one dangerous second, the room wanted the easier story. A sad wedding, a misunderstanding, everyone moving on. Then Mrs. Parker looked down at the second paper Noah had placed under his letter. Jenna's photograph, the ballroom screen, the cropped medical page, the timestamp printed in the corner. This was projected before the ceremony was canceled? Mrs. Parker asked. Mrs. Whitmore's smile did not move. I don't recall the exact order. It was a terrible day. Noah placed the diner napkin beside the photo, the one marked 4:17 p.m., property bag visible, phone inside, release requested before return. Her belongings were held after, he said. Her phone was not with her when Daniel was texting. Daniel's jaw shifted. Hotels have procedures. So do schools, Noah replied. Procedures are supposed to protect people, not hide who hurt them. Mrs. Parker looked up. Something in her face had changed, not into belief, but into responsibility. She turned to the secretary at the entrance table. Please don't delete any parent portal complaints from this week. Mrs. Whitmore stepped closer, lowering her voice into velvet. Surely this can be handled after the program. It is being handled during the program because the complaint affected who was allowed in this room, Mrs. Parker said. That was the first crack. Jenna entered through the side door then, carrying a plain manila envelope and wearing the same pale green cardigan she had thrown over her bridesmaid dress days before. Her shoes squeaked once on the polished floor. She did not look brave. She looked scared and finished with being scared. I have the access log, she said. Daniel moved first, too quickly for a man with nothing to hide. Jenna, don't. A few parents turned. Mrs. Whitmore's eyes flashed toward the ceiling corner, where the school's small security camera watched the sign-in table. Noah saw it. Mrs. Parker saw Noah see it. Jenna handed over the envelope. Inside were the clinic access log, the doctor's cover sheet confirming 3 pages, Daniel's message, the hotel screen photo, and a printed copy of the anonymous school complaint. Mrs. Parker laid them on the table one by one, not as a trial, but as a teacher arranging facts where rumors had been standing. This complaint came through the parent portal, she said. The signature line is electronic, but the recovery email matches an address used by the Whitmore Foundation for school donations. Mrs. Whitmore's smile finally thinned. I only removed details that were not necessary for people to understand the situation. The words left her mouth softly, too softly, but they landed hard. Noah did not speak. Claire lifted her head. Daniel closed his eyes for half a second. And Mrs. Parker, who had been holding the clipboard like a shield all evening, slowly set it down and reached for the auditorium microphone just as Eli's name was called from the stage. Eli's name echoed softly through the auditorium speakers. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Mrs. Parker stood beside the microphone with the manila envelope still open on the table behind her, the clinic access log resting beside the cropped medical slide, the doctor's cover sheet, Daniel's message, and the anonymous complaint that no longer looked anonymous at all. The overhead lights hummed faintly. Somewhere near the back, a folding chair settled with a quiet metallic click. Even the children waiting backstage stopped whispering. Eli walked onto the small wooden platform carrying the paper flower with both hands. One petal still showed the thin strip of clear tape Noah had pressed into place days earlier. He looked toward the audience, then toward Noah. Noah did not nod. He did not smile. He simply stood where he had always stood, giving his son room to choose his own courage. Eli unfolded the paper in his pocket, frowned for a second, then looked back up. I think I lost the last page, he admitted, holding up the wrinkled speech. A few gentle laughs rippled through the room. Mrs. Parker started to step forward, but Eli shook his head. It's okay. He folded the paper closed. I remember the important part. His voice trembled only once. A mom is the person who stays when you're scared and never makes you feel broken. The room grew still. Eli stepped down from the stage, walked straight past the front row, and stopped in front of Claire. Without asking for permission from the room, only from his own heart, he placed the paper flower into her hands. I know you said you're not anyone's mom, he whispered, but thank you for staying. Claire's fingers closed around the flower as though it might disappear if she breathed too hard. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not collapse under them. She bent just enough to meet Eli at eye level. Thank you, she whispered back, for asking me before anyone else decided who I was allowed to be. It was then that Mrs. Parker stepped to the microphone. She did not raise her voice. She did not dramatize what came next. Before we continue, she said carefully, I need to address something that affects the school community. She lifted the doctor's cover sheet first. This document confirms that the medical report discussed publicly at a private wedding originally contained 3 pages. She placed it beside the enlarged wedding photograph. The image shown publicly displayed only page 2. She laid the clinic access log beside it. The clinic has confirmed that the report was accessed 2 days before the wedding through an employee account connected to a family relationship now under review. Finally, she picked up the printed complaint sent through the school's parent portal. And this complaint asking the school to exclude Miss Morgan from this event originated from the same recovery email connected to the Whitmore Foundation. No one applauded. No one gasped. The silence that followed was heavier than either. Mrs. Whitmore took one careful step forward. I never intended, she began. Then she stopped herself, but it was already too late. I only removed the part people didn't need to see. The words hung in the air exactly as they had at the entrance table minutes earlier. This time, there was nowhere left for them to hide. Mrs. Parker lowered the paper slowly. The part you removed, she said quietly, was the part that changed the meaning. Daniel's shoulders sank almost imperceptibly. He looked toward Claire, opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time since anyone had met him, he had no explanation polished enough to survive the evidence lying in plain sight. Jenna reached into the envelope one final time and handed Mrs. Parker a sealed copy of the complete report provided through the clinic's legal office that morning. Mrs. Parker did not read it aloud. She simply looked at the final page, then back at Claire. The original physician's conclusion states that reduced fertility is not infertility, she said. The information presented publicly was incomplete and materially misleading. Somewhere near the center aisle, a pen slipped from someone's fingers and rolled across the polished floor. The tiny sound seemed impossibly loud. Mrs. Whitmore lowered her eyes. Daniel rubbed one hand across his forehead, unable to look toward the stage or the audience. Parents who had whispered all week now stared instead at the papers spread across the table. No one laughed. No one defended the story they had repeated. Noah remained exactly where he was. He did not step forward to claim victory. He did not point at Daniel. He did not ask for apologies. He only watched Claire standing with Eli beside her, the repaired paper flower resting carefully between her hands. Mrs. Parker looked out across the room before speaking one last time. Effective immediately, she said, Claire Morgan will remain as Eli Bennett's invited guest today. The school will also preserve every related complaint and document for formal review. Until that review is complete, no further action based on those complaints will be taken. She turned to the secretary. Please contact district administration and ask them to suspend deletion of all associated records. The secretary nodded immediately, quietly, officially, systematically. Justice had begun not with anger, but with procedure finally serving the truth instead of hiding it. Eli slipped his small hand into Claire's. She looked instinctively toward Noah, uncertain whether she had the right to stand there. Noah met her eyes across the rows of chairs and gave the smallest nod. Not permission, recognition. You never needed permission to have dignity. Around them, the audience remained frozen, each person left alone with the uncomfortable weight of what they had believed too quickly. The banner above the stage still read celebrating mothers and those who love us, but the words no longer meant what they had meant an hour earlier. Claire held the paper flower against her heart, and for the first time since the wedding day had shattered, she did not look like someone waiting to be judged. She looked like someone finally seen. Yet as the applause slowly, hesitantly began, not for victory, but for Eli's courage, Noah glanced toward the empty chair beside him, the place no one had occupied since his wife died, and realized that now the hardest decision of all was no longer about proving the truth. It was about what he would choose to do with the quiet second chance that truth had finally given them. The applause in Willow Creek Elementary did not rise like celebration. It came slowly, unevenly, then faded into something more honest than noise. Parents gathered their coats without meeting Claire's eyes for too long, not because they still condemned her, but because shame has a way of making even decent people suddenly interested in the floor. Mrs. Parker stayed near the sign-in table with the manila envelope pressed beneath one hand, speaking quietly to the secretary about preserving records, contacting the district, and documenting every complaint tied to the Whitmore Foundation email. Outside the auditorium doors, Daniel stood beside his mother without the polished ease he had carried in. He looked smaller beneath the fluorescent hallway lights, not ruined, not attacked, just finally unable to hide behind charm. Mrs. Whitmore tried once to step toward Claire, but Noah moved. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just one step between them. Not today, he said. 2 words. A boundary. The kind of mercy that did not confuse itself with permission. Within a week, the consequences arrived in paper, not thunder. The hotel sent Claire a written apology for removing her from the property and withholding her belongings under the wrong authority. The clinic placed Rebecca Hensley on administrative leave and confirmed cooperation with a privacy investigation. Daniel signed a legal acknowledgement that Claire's medical information had been used without her consent and agreed, through counsel, not to contact her while the matter was reviewed. Willow Creek Elementary changed one line in its family event policy. Mother or legal guardian became honored caregiver or trusted adult chosen by the child's parent. No parade followed. No headline fixed what had been broken. But the record changed, and sometimes that is how dignity first returns. Not as applause, but as ink that refuses to lie. Noah went back to the garage the next morning before sunrise. He changed brake pads, argued with a stubborn starter, and ate half a peanut butter sandwich standing beside the parts shelf. People came in quieter now. A few apologized badly. A few left cash tips they pretended were for labor. Noah accepted only what belonged on the invoice. Marlene told him that was stubborn. Noah told her maybe, but a man should know the difference between help and pity. Claire kept working upstairs, sorting receipts, rebuilding the garage books one careful stack at a time. The first invoice she corrected was framed later, not because it mattered to the business, but because it marked the day she stopped being treated like a problem and started being trusted with responsibility. Eli returned to school with the paper flower tucked safely in his backpack, no longer soft from rain but still imperfect at the taped petal. When another child asked if Claire was his mom now, he only shrugged and said, "She's Claire. She comes when she says she will." That was enough. Children, when protected well, do not need speeches to feel safe. On Friday evening, the 3 of them sat in Noah's kitchen while rain tapped gently against the window, softer than it had on the wedding day. The old chair beside Noah, the one he had wiped down for years without letting anyone sit there, stood pulled out from the table. Claire noticed it first. She looked at Noah, uncertain, careful with the silence. He did not rush her. He reached into his pocket and placed a house key on the table, beside the repaired paper flower and the first corrected garage invoice. "This isn't a ring," he said. "It isn't a promise you owe me back. It's a key. If you stay, it's because you choose to. If you leave, you still leave with your name whole." Claire touched the key but did not pick it up right away. "I can't replace her," she whispered. Noah's eyes moved to the empty chair, then to Eli rinsing 3 mugs at the sink. Humming off-key like peace had finally found the room. "No one asked you to," he said. "We don't need someone to replace what we lost. We need someone who can sit with what's still here." Claire lowered herself into the chair. Nothing broke. No memory disappeared. The room simply made space. Eli dried his hands, came over, and placed the paper flower in a small frame Marlene had bought from the dollar store. He set it in the center of the table, where everyone could see the torn petal, the tape, the red paper still wrinkled from rain. For a long moment no one spoke. It was not the stunned silence of a room exposed by truth. It was the quiet silence of a family learning how to breathe without proving it deserved to exist. Outside, the garage sign flickered once, then steadied, and in the warm kitchen light, an old jacket, a repaired flower, and a simple key became proof that dignity does not need to shout. Kindness only waits for the right moment to become a miracle.